Parsons. So Micah Parsons is also another athlete that Mike Leslie had the privilege of covering while he was in Dallas. And we all know Micah Parsons, phenom, absolute star of a football player. And he wanted a bag from Jerry Jones. He did not get a bag. Cole, can you tell us what it's like for a player going through contract negotiations and not getting what you feel like you're owed and deserve?
Yeah, I can tell you that. It's disheartening to say the least, especially a guy of Micah Parsons caliber who's done so much for that Cowboys team, um, and really deserved to be paid for what he had done and what he's going to do in the future. Um, but as we all know, Jerry Jones, he wheels and deals how he feels like it, and he didn't think Michael Parsons was deserving the way that so many other people believe. So Michael Parsons, he did what he had to do to get out of there, and he successfully did.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about this snapshot that turned smear for Micah Parsons right before he got up out of Dallas. So, Gabe, if you want to pop up a picture during a preseason game, Micah Parsons was seen laying on a trainer's table for a very brief moment during a game, I might add. It was not like he was over there lounging for an entire quarter, taking a nap and things like that. But a quick picture like that, quick moment, maybe last 2 minutes, 3 minutes, quickly turned into the biggest storyline, biggest narrative on social media just regarding Micah Parsons and his support for his team and his guys out there going on the fighting, for their lives and fighting for a job. And this is how this is his tactic to get out of Dallas. When you see a picture like that, Cole, tell me first, this two-part question. One, is this acceptable as a football player doing this at any level, high school, college, NFL? Secondly, when you see this, what's the first thing you think about that the media will say when they see a picture like this and a guy in a contract dispute?
Yeah, man. First of all, if you see this, if it's the way that it's painted out to be that he was laying over there and not supporting his guys and all that stuff, it's not acceptable. It's disrespectful to everybody else that's out there fighting for a job and fighting for their NFL lives. It's disrespectful to your teammates. It's disrespectful to your coaches, the organization, to the fans, everybody. So you never want to see something like this. And Michael Parsons knows very well that all eyes are on him in this type of situation. So for you to go ahead and do something like this, you know what's going to happen. So you kind of know what this comes with, especially if you did it for any prolonged period of time. With what you have going on with the contract disputes, everybody's going to uh, link that to you and your disgruntled feelings towards the organization, and it's just not a good look. It's not a good look at all.
All right. Well, shout out to Mike Leslie then, because right after this picture went viral, Gabe, let's pop up Mike Leslie's original tweet where he basically came to Micah's defense and he said, in the interest of clarity and fairness, Micah Parsons was not laying on the training table all night. In fact, that was only a relatively short portion of the evening. So he's letting people know right now, because you can already see the narratives being spun like, oh, he doesn't care about his team. He's selfish and things like that. And Mike's like, hold up, wait a second. Like, let me provide a little bit of clarity, a little bit of context. And I think this is why this podcast is important, because there's two sides to every story. There's two sides between journalists and athletes. So, social media journalists are going to take that and they're going to blast it to their people. And then all the fans are going to pick up negative news. He doesn't want to be there, etc. So Mike did that in his defense. And then Micah came in response, Gabe, if you want to put up that next picture. And this is what he had to say about Mike coming out and said that. He said, I actually appreciate this. The way media shapes perception and narratives is wow. And if he hadn't said anything, everyone would have just run with it. I never disrespect the guys out there fighting for their lives. So, Cole, do you think that Mike Leslie was right for doing that, for making that picture? Or do you think it was like more on Micah, like, look, don't do that, even if it's 2 to 3 minutes?
Yeah, I gotta commend Mike Leslie for putting out that tweet and really giving the real context of what happened. Because when I first seen the report, I had the same reaction, like, whoa, man, what is like? I understand that you got a dispute with the team, but for you to do something like this is crazy, man. And so when Mike Leslie came out with the second tweet and said this actually was a very short portion of the evening. And honestly, we don't even know when this was. It probably could have been during a lull in the game, or it could have been 2 to 3 seconds, not even 2 minutes. So for him to put out more context on it, I got to commend him for that. He didn't have to do that at all. He could have just let that run, but for him to do it shows that he like media and athletes can come together sometime too.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. I think you need good journalists out there like Mike that will not let a narrative get spun and be like, you know what? Yeah, he's lazy. He doesn't care about the Cowboys. He was laying down, all these things. He's like, look, there's a story behind it. There's context. And I think also hearing that Micah Parsons was dealing with the back issue, I'm pretty sure that maybe has something to do with it too. Now I want to pop up the next response from Mike, because it seems like we were going to ask him about this, but it seems like he got a little pushback from everything regarding his response and whatnot. So he said, one picture from one moment in time does not tell the story of the whole night. Keep in mind, over the next day or so, as the talk shows run wild with this discussion, with wild discussion segments about Parsons laying down on the training table, I posted the picture too. Don't get me wrong, but there was a reason I also posted the clarification, because it wasn't fair for the pictures of him laying down to be the only thing out there. So with Mike saying that, look, like MyCole just said, you commend him for doing that. But I want to give you an example of why reporters like Mike are important, because if they don't come out and make posts like that, you see the next post. So Gabe, if we could show a post from another reporter from The Athletic, who is, I think, John Machado, who works in Dallas. He obviously covers the Dallas Cowboys, but he had a picture of Micah Parsons laying down on the table. And I think his quote or his tweet said, "I don't think Micah Parsons wants to be here." So you see that, and you see that narrative get spun instantly from a media member. And that's why I think it's important to have two sides to have proper context, because you have Mike saying, hey, this was basically a short portion of the night. And then you got John coming out and saying that he doesn't want to be here. So Cole, when you see those two different type of reactions, first thing that comes to your mind?
First thing that comes to my mind is how can you assume something like that when Michael Parsons has been saying over and over again, I want to be here. Like, I love the Cowboys organization, but you see how he's being treated by his owner / GM. And so you're really just putting this out there, and you're not really giving the full context as Mike Leslie did. So it's really unfair, and it's really trying to spin the narrative and trying to incite, the reactions from the fans and from the people consuming your media.
Long story short, shout out to Mike Leslie. What you did, that was phenomenal, providing both sides to that story, because as MyCole loves to say on this podcast, people in media love negative news. And shout out to Mike for making sure it was... No, it's the people that consume negative news. We go argue about that every time you bring it up. But shout out to Mike for being a true journalist, a good journalist, providing context on the Micah Parsons situation. And shout out to him for handling that Trayvon Diggs situation with class and utmost respect. It's always good. Like MyCole said, players can have some heightened emotions after a game. We can have some preconceived notions in our head about what cost the team the game, who did what, who didn't do what. And then we all go meet in the locker room and try and form a story. So that sometimes can lead to a lot of tension, high emotion, and some negative storylines or viral moments like we saw from Mike Leslie. And he told me that week was crazy for him, that I can only imagine. I'm pretty sure there was a lot of people on Trayvon Diggs' side, and then there was a lot of people on Mike's side, and then there's journalists and people like us that kind of understand both angles to everything. So shout out to Mike. Wish he could have joined us and talked about this stuff a little further and a little more in detail, but we just did our best to break it down on why journalists like Mike or incidents like that need to be hashed out, need to be talked about, and need to be discussed.
Stand for the truth, otherwise take a knee. Made it to the league, now we gotta take the lead. Touchdown, MyCole Pruitt. Sports Now, I'm Ahmad Hicks. Must be two sides.